All right, we have an amazing guest with us today and a very good friend of mine, Harold Naylor. He is the executive director of Good Neighbors Home Repair. Now, as you may know, Good Neighbors is our sponsored ministry for this virtual conference. It's a wonderful Christian organization that provides free professional home repair for low-income homeowners throughout the Delaware Valley area. And obviously, with all the lockdowns that we're in and, in effect, mass shut-ins, the home is more important than ever. And Good Neighbors is blessing more people than you can imagine with a home. Now, Harold and I, we go way back. Harold was previous to Good Neighbors. He was the director of stewardship at the classical school that I teach at. And he has a massive bandwidth, as he and I like to say, in fundraising and board and leadership training. And so Harold and I have spent many, many hours talking about all the possibilities of the rise of a new conservative age and a conservative Christian renewal throughout our nation and indeed throughout all the world. And as you are going to find out, he actually had a major hand in getting Turley Talks started. So Harold, great to have you with us, my dear friend.
Thank you, Steve. It is good to be here. And for your audience, I just want to say that it was a small part. It may have come at a great time, but it was a small part. I have to say that you were a very good student and you ran with it.
Yeah, well, give us a little bit of the backstage pass in terms of how Turley Talks was started, because you really were one of the major people involved. There was about a handful of you in getting this off the ground. I was stubborn at first. I was pretty resistant to the idea, but I mean, you probably more than anyone else, you and Ralph, you helped, you gave me the incentive and the vision to get things going. So why don't you give us a little insight into your role behind the scenes here?
Well, it's really a good story. You've always been a great person just to dialogue with and to brainstorm with. And as you'd finished your dissertation and you successfully defended it, you said, "Is that all there is?" And I said, "Steve, I think there's a lot more. But what we have to do is we have to turn your great scholarship and your passion for all things conservative into something that people can digest in smaller, bite-sized kinds of ways." So it was really not an incredible leap to go from what you had done to saying, "Hey, let's shoot some videos, let's record you. Let's get some pieces of you in digestible chunks so that a larger audience can actually benefit and kind of come along with you and grow with you, even as you're continuing to discover and to see how your philosophy really had great application, not just from years ago, but today." So that's how it started. We got a few early funders and some interest, and then we worked with Ralph, and the next thing you know, you're live. It's wonderful.
Yeah. We're live, right? Yeah, that was pretty astonishing stuff. What we were able to do there. I'm blessed for it, and we're all blessed for it because of you, and really your encouragement with me. At first, I remember thinking to myself that a lot of this was just I guess I had to get beyond my concern over my own ego, which I know can easily be inflated. And I was really worried that, if I just had a website, and back to that time, it was pretty much website blogging, all that kind of stuff. I remember just saying to myself, I don't know, I almost feel conceited getting out and doing something like this and flashing my name and flashing myself. And I remember you saying something akin to this, and this is going to bring us to another point I want to talk with you about. I remember you saying that you thought I was being selfish, which I thought was very interesting. I was worried about being conceited, and here you're saying you're being selfish because I'm refusing to share what God has given to me with the wider world, and to stop worrying about my ego and just focus on serving and focus on being, this is your favorite word, being a steward over what I have, rather than thinking that I'm an owner, as it were.
Yeah, in that way, Steve, I was right. You were right. You have some great thoughts to share, and God's given you a tremendous ability to present those. And again, you do it in right now. Of course, you've refined it over the years, and you've done better and better at it. And now I see that God's really been preparing you for a long time, just prior to Turley Talks, but really getting you your communication skills such that you were able to do this in a completely new venue. And what's exciting is to see how many people you've been able to touch over these years. And I've watched your numbers grow, and I've seen even just the quality of what you've been able to do get better, and your scholarship and your research. I've learned along with your larger audience. So I never imagined what God would do here, but it's exciting to see.
Yeah, it is. And this Turley Talks is the fruit actually of a very influential theology of stewardship that you helped to develop and promote. I remember you talking, for example, about this difference between being an owner versus being a steward. And for any of the particularly small business owners out there, can you just give us a sense of that distinction and the significance of the distinction between being an owner versus being a steward?
Wow. Well, the owner implies a two kingdom world. It says that I've got my stuff and God's got his stuff, and sometimes they'll intersect, but not necessarily. But being a great steward is to recognize that it all belongs to God. All of our time, our talent, our treasure, the things, those three T's that we talked about all the time. And so stewardship in its purest sense is recognizing that we're all gifted and that God's given us tremendous abilities and skills and ability to influence for good. And so for us to be a good steward of what he's given us is really to say, Lord, you have everything. And so we're merely caretakers and managers, stewards, if you will, of what you've given us. And so we're under obligation to share that as God enables us to do it.
Yeah, it's amazing when you think of life and everything you have as a gift. It's so much, it's just a natural inclination to want to gift others as well with that. So why don't you give us a bit of a backstory of Good Neighbors Home Repair, when it began, what inspired the start of this ministry and the like?
Well, 30 years ago, our founder, who was just leaving his time at DuPont, said there's got to be more to my giving world, my own stewardship world. And he took a 1-week trip down to Appalachia, and he repaired homes for a week with another group of volunteers who would go to central Appalachia in some of the poorest areas in our country, of course, and they repaired homes. He came back to Kennett Square, and he got together with his guys at his church, and they had a little coffee club that met on Saturday mornings. And they said, look, here we are. We just had this great experience. Why should we go all the way to Appalachia when all around us are low-income folks whose homes are dilapidated? Their work started with helping some widows who had some demolition they needed done and that she needed done. And the next thing you know, they're actually doing this kind of on an organized way. And then a little bit later, people gave them some money and said, here, go out and not just do the demolition, but go do some repairs. And that started to grow. And then other churches got involved. And in about 10 years, they actually became their own 501c3. Well, that was 30 years ago. Jay was our founder. He was the executive director. Then we put in another guy in there. I was actually used as a consultant to Good Neighbors about 12 years ago. We installed another executive director who brought some form to the whole process. And he really organized things very well. And then 4.5 years ago, when I left the classical school where we worked, I was hired. They asked me to come back and said, would you kind of finish what you started? And so I had a chance to come back, and we were doing about 60 homes, 60 families a year. And then just over the next 4.5 years, Steve, it's been amazing. We were able to expand into Delaware, the adjacent state, to where we were in Pennsylvania. And we've actually this year, just last week, we finished another year of repairing homes for another 130 families, all at no cost to them.
Wow. Yeah. Give us a sense of give us a sense of what it is that you do. How are you impacting the communities with which you're working?
Well, as the scriptures tell us, the poor will always be with us. And so part of our work is to understand where the poor are. So we get referrals from churches and social service agencies. And we even do a little bit of advertising, a little bit of canvassing. And so folks come to us and they say, we We can afford to turn the lights on. We can afford to feed ourselves. We can afford clothing, but we have a leaky roof. And so what we do is we come in and we kind of triage and we look at the home situation. We talk to the homeowner. We talk to them about our faith and what propels us. And if they qualify, if they meet some basic requirements, then we will actually do a complete set of repairs. And that would include roof and windows and siding and doors. I mean, we'll sort of, to put an umbrella over it, Steve, what we do is we make homes warmer, safer, drier, and healthier. So that covers a lot of stuff. It doesn't mean we do a lot of painting and gingerbread, but it does critical infrastructure. And folks are amazed. They say, wait, what manner of person would do this for free? And we say, well, we're propelled by the Lord and we're funded by him as well. And so every year we're able to do well over somewhere between 100 and 150 homes, both in Delaware and in Chester County, Pennsylvania. It's an amazing privilege to serve, and we just closed out our books last week, and I'm pleased to say that in God's amazing providence, we raised more money than we ever have in the history of the ministry.
Wow. That's when people say 2020 was a horrible year. We do forget there's these wonderful flashes of grace all throughout, even dark times. That's phenomenal. And
it is an amazing grace. Yes.
And I take it it's primarily volunteers that you that work on the houses and the like.
Every year we have as many as 500 volunteers. So we are always looking for volunteers because we have a small core group. We call them full-time equivalents. We have about 5.
Wow.
So that we have a bunch of part-time people, but we have basically 5 full-time equivalents. And we have a small office staff. We've got professional repair technicians or project managers. And then we enlist all kinds of volunteers from businesses, schools, churches, organizations. And many of them come with people who have skills, but most of them come with folks who have no skills. And they come onto our job sites. We give them all of the tools and supplies and the safety equipment that they need. And they go out and have a marvelous experience. So we are a volunteer-driven organization funded by donations from foundations and churches and individuals and businesses.
Well, I'm sure that there are many of our viewers who would love to get involved more and support your wonderful work. So what can others do to get more involved, and how can they contact you?
That's great. Thank you, Steve. It's very simple. It's goodneighborshomerepair.org. Goodneighborshomerepair.org. You go onto the website, you say, I want to help. There's a volunteer button that you can click on. You can give us your information. It'll go to someone in the office. We'll contact you. We'll find out what best fits. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say that you couldn't also donate online. So we have the ability for folks to fund us as well. And again, we're coming off of a wonderful year, but as of 2 days ago, we started over. So 2021 is a new year for us.
That's wonderful. Awesome. Well, I'm sure we're going to have, you're going to have a lot of activity as a result of this virtual conference. And one of the things that I've been saying to people and kind of promoting this is not only are you going to get blessed, but you're going to bless others as a result because of what we're going to be able to do with Good Neighbors. Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm going to say another thing that you and I talked about in years past is the bilateral blessing, that when you're giving to a good work like Good Neighbors, you're not only blessing us, but you in return are receiving a blessing, because you get the satisfaction of knowing that you were used by God to do something good and to relieve suffering or to bless others. So you knew I was going to say that.
I was going to say, just as you taught me. That's that was my line, but I think you said it much, much better.
Thank you, sir.
Well, Harold, great, man. You know, look, I'm still trying to get used to not seeing you every day and spending our several hours a month just sitting down in your office and chatting and planning on our roles in this new conservative age. But God's clearly planted us in our respective gardens, as it were. It's an absolute privilege to support your work. Thanks so much for being with us, for being a blessing to us so that we can bless others. Thanks, Harold.
Thank you, Steve. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about something that God has used to bless me as well. So thank you.
Thank you, man.